Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Javier, for having me today. I'm actually going to read it out because she's got a very extensive bio, and I tried to do it memorizing, but it's not going to work. So here we go. Here is Carla Herbertson. She's co-founder and director of Small Water. Carla has worked in children's audio for over 20 years, 10 of which have been a BBC producer across a variety of children's output, including CB Babies. As head of international audio content for global distribution, and Carla has worked with publishers on their audiobook publishing strategy, distribution, and marketing across the UK, US, and Europe. Carla co-founded Small Water, a children's audio consultancy and production company, in 2022. And with this company, they fulfill the needs for audio experts within children's media and publishing. And they also produce their own award-winning podcasts. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to go up there. Thank you very much for having me. And actually, we're going to talk about, this is the most important talk, really, of the day, because it really is. It's about children's audio. It's about your future listener. And that's why it's important. So I just wanted to say that from the start so that you know where we're at. So, in a world where screens dominate children's attention, a new revolution is quietly unfolding. Children's audio in the form of audiobooks and children's audio devices, as well as podcasts, all of which bring new opportunities for publishers. And today we will focus on both audiobooks and devices. Some stats for you. I know that Michelle has already taken you through most of them this morning, but I shall give you a couple more. As according to the recent report, the global audiobooks market was valued at $6.4 billion in 2023 and is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 26.3% from now until 2032. And according to the US organization Audio Publishers Association, 56% of audiobook listeners with children report that their kids actively engage with audio content. The children's genre, I know Michelle's also said this because people have already taught me this, although currently a small component of the US audio market at 3% is experiencing the fastest growth. So, see, very important. Devices. As mentioned earlier today, there's been a significant increase in the availability, or earlier in my talk, there's been a significant increase in the availability of audio devices for kids globally. And these devices are reshaping how kids interact with stories, providing a safe, tangible, and accessible gateway to the world of storytelling. So for children aged 2 to 6, so this is kind of generally what these devices, their target audience is. These audio players are not just gadgets, they serve as gateways to a world where kids can independently interact with stories, and this is the important part, without relying on parental assistance. And this is the important part when we talk a little bit later about screens. At the recent Booksellers Children's Conference in the UK, it was reported that autonomy plays a crucial role in nurturing children's love for books and reading, which is why audio players are so important. The players mainly have two components, as you can see, the actual player and figurines or cards or discs, which fits on to the device or headset. So, it all started in Germany a few years back with Tony's, now the most popular children's audio player around the world. And over the last few years, we've seen a rise in players across North America with Tony's Yoto StoryPod and recently Story Button. The UK, you see the yellow dots, Tony's Yoto and Voxblog. France, this is a longer list, Tony's Yoto, Luni, Merlin, Timio, Tikinu and Bukinu. You say it, I just did. And Italy, Faber. Also Australia with Birdie. And interestingly, there's a lack of players available in retail in the Nordics and Benelux, and that's probably got to do with the language not extending globally. Spain, because that's why we're here. In Spain, devices available are Tony's Timeo online, and then Yoto, they've just done a deal in Spain with PRH, but they're not imminently on planning a Spanish market launch. Instead, they've made their content available as digital cards in their existing markets, and the majority of sales for Spanish language are coming from North America and the Latin Spanish versions of the cards. But we do have some great new players in the market, which are more storytelling and podcasts, but still very, very important. And I wanted to give them a shout out because it takes a lot to start up an audio platform for kids without actually, a lot of support out there. So it's Nuba, which is the audio platform by Baby Radio, and it's Ditto, a kids online podcast platform, which basically gives stories. It's all about neurodevelopment and development of the brain and education through stories. So why should you invest in children's audio? The data tells us it's a growth market, we know, so it's very important. But nurturing your future listener is incredibly important. If you want to grow your adult listener, you need to invest in your children's audience as they are your future customers. And they need to learn to listen so that, when they grow up or become teenagers or early adulthood, whatever, they will have that habit and will start picking up audiobooks and listening to audiobooks, adult audiobooks. Additional benefits are audiobooks make reading accessible. They offer value to education settings, and as the National Literacy Trust in the UK have said, in their research, audiobooks benefit children's literacy, learning, and their mental health. It allows children who struggle with reading to keep up with their peers. So by reading the same books as they are, and children who are good readers are able to read up. What that means is they're listening to books written for older age group and introducing them to vocabulary without being challenged. So they wouldn't be able to read those books, but they are able to listen to those books. And then there's a very vital part which I think will play a huge role in audio going forward, which is the screen-free element. A recent study in the US reported that almost half of parents, and I think this number is going up all the time, are concerned about their kids' screen time. As long as there are screens, audio consumption will grow because we can't look at a screen, although, kids are trying, 24/7, they need something else. The screen element will be so incredibly important. Also, recently in Spain, I know there's a petition going to ban phones or interactive phones for kids under 16. The same thing is happening actually in the UK at the moment. So there are really a lot of concerned parents, and I think audio is a great solution to entertaining the troops, so to say. Okay. So how do you start? Well, you look at the market. You need to really know how you're going to get to those kids. So I advise to look at distribution before you look at what type of content you're going to be, offering. It's not easy to penetrate the market with children's audio content, and it's therefore really, really advisable to adopt a go-wide strategy when it comes to distribution. The kids' audio players like Tony's as well and Yoto, they retail around €70, which is quite a lot of money, before you add content. So to reach children from a different socio-economic background, it's really important to embrace all models. Amazon Kids Plus, streaming services. Make sure you distribute to platforms where kids already are. That means Spotify. I know Spotify at the moment doesn't do audiobooks in the Spanish market yet, but there is the streaming service option to kind of offer them through the music streaming platform of Spotify. And you might say, why? But YouTube, because kids are already on YouTube, and we need to teach them to listen and learn and get them involved in the audio side of things. Ultimately, reaching more kids will create more revenue. Don't forget the library platforms. Library platforms play an important role in introducing kids to audio. I know that in Spain you have around 4,500 public libraries. They organize huge amounts of events, and which are attended by close to 3 million people, library users. So there's a real community there which you can interact with. So depending on the platforms available to you, you then start looking at how to bundle your content, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about that later. You know, is it download, is it streaming? Make sure you have value for money, because ultimately it's the parent who is buying and they want value for money so not a 15-minute audiobook, it has to be a little bit longer. In short, ensure you're gaining a comprehensive understanding of the current and future market, the target market and the proposed product's place in it. And define your logistics of distribution and sales channels before launch to ensure that you have maximum impact. Easy content wins. You look at what does well for you in print. Very simple. Bestsellers, you know, your backlist. The top, you know, titles in both the UK and US, they're always the same. Classics. J.K. Rowling, Roald Dahl, Enid Blyton. Reoccurring authors brands for the 2 to 5-year-olds are Julia Donaldson in the UK, Peppa Pig, Disney. So all of these are kind of standout, that have been around for a very, very long time. And ultimately, the parents are the buying audience, and they also will buy what they have what their parents read to them when they were little. So it's bestsellers. It's classic tales in that kind of sense, so it's the Roald Dahls, and because parents read them as a child. It's established brands, Peppa Pig, whatever the Spanish version is. I don't even want to know.
Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig, there we go. It's series of books. She is so global, I love her. Because series of books are really important, because if a child loves one book, it wants to listen to the next one, and the other one. So you look at this type of content, and then what you do, and also look at your own IP, which is really important, because you'll be able to test a little bit more with that. But you then go to testing. You test a variety of titles, and you see what works and what doesn't. You test for about 2 years, and yes, it will take 2 years minimum, because probably longer in a non-established kind of audiobook market like Spain. But it's an investment. It's a marketing piece. It's an investment in your future listener. And the adult audiobook platforms, they won't feature many kids' titles from a marketing perspective. So the ability to market on those platforms is minimum. So you need to use your own channels, your own partnerships. We've just heard a little bit about that, with, for example, library platforms and dedicated kids platforms. And to keep marketing costs down, you identify promoting channels with highest return on investment, like, for example, social media, which is, I know YouTube is seen, and kids podcasts, etc. You also, a couple of other tips is, if you're using famous narrators, you make sure that you video all of this. You're using authors, you make sure that they're authors that have a community and following on social media, that will be able to, you know, shout about the audiobooks. You make sure you have pictures and use that within your marketing. And if, for example, you have a Peppa Pig, you'll make sure that you use the same voice actors for those well-established titles, or for those well-established kind of characters that kids see on TV, because that will translate in the audio. And my final one, I think, is be ready. New children's audio players will be entering the market. And if you wish to be part of a new platform from the very beginning, you need to have an easy-to-license list. So you need to have your template agreements in place, you need to have your audiobooks in place, and you need to know exactly that you're ready to go. And so all you guys need to do now is you need to start making some lovely audiobooks for very, very tiny children and not so tiny children. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we've got a lady with a mission. So by the time we finish, you're all going to go out and hopefully start working on your strategy for the next 2 coming years. to make readers out of young toddlers and future teenagers, which I think is a brilliant idea. Taking in consideration all the good things that can come out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to everything, which is quite a lot and very exciting. My first question would be, and the idea is, I would very much strongly advise you to take the chance and opportunity because she is on a mission. So I'm going to ask maybe one question, and it would be ideal that you can all chip in because I think it's going to be way more interesting for you. So we've got the distribution, right? Mm-hmm. We've done our homework.
We've done our homework.
We know we want to go with as much as we can.
Yeah.
Because we need a big audience.
Yeah.
What would you suggest I do to launch? Should I do at least 10, 20 titles? Do I have to go? What would be the minimum you would request for a project like this?
Don't do one title. You know, you go with 10 to 20 titles, depending obviously on your list and how big or small a print you are. But I would say 10, 15, 20 titles. And what you choose is you choose a variety of titles. So you choose non-fiction, you choose fiction titles, you look at different audiences, the very young ones, some older ones. You put in a series in there, you put your classics in there that everyone reads with their children, you put something new in there, and then you test, and then you wait, you test, and you see what works, and then you amend whatever you're doing, and you build on your successes.
To invest in what you know is probably working.
Yeah.
And what's the duration that you have been
Okay,
testing?
so this is really, the duration part is really important because ultimately kind of our listens are driven by it's very tricky because we have two audiences. We have the child who's listening, who needs to keep listening for us adults to buy the audiobooks. But the adults are the first one who will buy the audiobooks. So what will they go for? And so when you then think about what kind of platforms they're on, if they're on a download platform, they want value for money. They don't want to have a 15-minute book, if we're thinking about kind of preschool children, that costs, I don't know, €7-9. They want to have value for money. So we are, a lot of the time when I work with publishers, we look at bundling content. We look at what we can do, what we can create out of the list they already have. So bedtime stories, stories for in the car. We look at, you know, if there's loads of picture books from one particular author, then we look at what we could do with those and how we can kind of develop those into audiobooks that will at least be 60 minutes long, because that is that value for money piece.
Okay, another important part that I took out from this conversation, and this is going to be probably my last question, because again, I encouraged you, the way it's going to help literacy across the board, I think is really interesting from the library point of view, because they end up being a prescription.
Yeah.
You know, you go there, you don't know what to choose for your kids, they're there to help you. We know they engage in a lot of activities. Storytelling time happens in person, but having the benefit of being able to take that home could be something that also could be working. And I would like to ask you, from an pure educational point of view, kids that may have, dyslexia or have a harder time reading, this could prove also to be a helpful tool? Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, it really helps those children who are lacking in confidence, and not only in regards to dyslexia, but lacking in confidence to kind of read and be on the same level as their peers. But the most valuable, and the other valuable side of it, is that children who are good readers are able to read up. They might not be able to read up physically in print, but they are able to read up while listening. And I find it really important, and I made a little bit controversial here, is to say that actually audiobooks or books, however you consume storytelling, is good,
Yes.
And listening is reading. And I think that's a really, really important takeaway to have, to give to people. It's also that kind of, especially in the early years, where bonding and family sharing is so incredibly important. It's that kind of listening to a story together, or reading a story to your child, or vice versa, when they first start to really kind of get into reading, and they say, no, mummy, I want to read to you. That kind of connection has been proven to be so important when it comes to later, like, properly literacy skills, and also their chances in life of kind of getting good jobs. So I just don't really want to underestimate the importance of how important children's audio is in the great scheme of things. Yeah.
So I think we can open the floor, because we can still have a conversation, but if we can start having some questions, maybe that's interesting.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you, Carla, for what you said. I think it's very important to have that point of view in children. How do you manage in the English-speaking language the quality control? Because I am a mother and I usually look for content for my children, and there is like not a big thing about quality for children. Sometimes they think it's for children and they take everything. How do you manage to see the engagement of the little ones on the type of productions?
Well, as a company, so we're a consultancy, but we're also a production company, and we work with a lot of publishers to produce their content, and we make our own kind of podcasts as well. And for me, the quality is key to anything. It's key to engagement with the child, and I think so. It is very important, and so therefore, but I also really appreciate that you, maybe as a production house or whatever, you want to start somewhere and you don't have much budget, and at least trying is a good thing. But I think there's very different ways of making sure that it's engaging, and that you always keep the child at the heart of everything you do. So when it comes to our podcast, for example, we really know that a lot of children listen with their adults and with their grown-ups. So we always have something in there for grown-ups as well as for the kids. But ultimately, it's a children's production, and I think that's the most important thing. And it's just not underestimate these kids, because they know what they like and they know what they don't like. And I think just like how you put love into a book, you need to put love into audio as well. And you don't just want to just do it quickly and then there you go, you've got your audio version. So
Thank you.
Sí, hola, buenos días. Hablo en español. Bueno, soy ciego total y quiero darte las gracias por esa afirmación categórica que para mí es esencial, que también escuchar es leer. Yo tenía problemas de vista hasta los 20 años y a los 20 años me quedé ciego. Y me ayudó el que pudiera escuchar libros, en este caso a través de la Organización de Ciegos de mi país, de la ONCE, pero afortunadamente ahora cada vez con más audiolibros, porque yo recuerdo que si de niño hubiera tenido las opciones que hay ahora de escuchar a través de las distintas plataformas, habría podido leer mucho más y habría podido tenerlo más fácil. Valga mi testimonio para coincidir con lo que ha comentado Carla de cómo puede ayudar a niños con distinto tipo de problemáticas, no solo con una discapacidad, para disfrutar de la lectura y para el día de mañana ser el lector que yo soy hoy día. Y también darte las gracias por hacer mención a la palabra mágica que para nosotros es la accesibilidad. Antes se ha hablado una charla muy interesante con Storytel y ahora también la accesibilidad. Accesibilidad, hacer diseño para todos, creo que es importante. Pensar en el diseño para todo el mundo también lo es y bueno, pensar en esa accesibilidad no solo a los contenidos, sino también a los dispositivos que reproducen, a las plataformas, y pensar, pues eso, en mi caso, en la accesibilidad para personas ciegas a través de revisores de pantalla o magnificadores de caracteres, etcétera, pero también pues, para las personas que tienen problemas cognitivos con la lectura fácil, etcétera, etcétera. Muchísimas gracias por tu intervención, por esa apuesta por la lectura para los niños, en la que yo estoy plenamente decidido por mi experiencia y porque lo creo así, y enhorabuena por esa intervención. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Voy a hacer como un minuto, luego se lo cuento bien en persona, ¿vale? Pero por no ocupar mucho tiempo.
It's a very long question.
Well, it's not a question. It's actually a really strong, lovely acknowledgement, and he wants to really deeply thank you because he was blind when he was 20, so making accessible audio for him is the best he could have done. He totally resonates with listening is reading.
Well
And
done.
he is very thankful and hopes that this is going to help a lot of kids that are suffering from that lack of accessibility that you're now offering. So it's a big, big thank you, basically.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I haven't done much, but yeah, there you go.
Pues hay que elegir. Ahí, la primera, levanta la mano porque yo te veo, pero ella no.
Hola, yo también hago la pregunta en español. Gracias por tu intervención, me ha gustado muchísimo, me ha parecido súper interesante. Me gustaría pedirte un consejo, ya que puedo abusar de ti, ya que estás ahí expuesta. Has hablado mucho de los audiocuentos, de los audiolibros infantiles, pero me gustaría que me dieses algún consejo para un proyecto de podcast creado por niños para niños. Es decir, hasta qué punto, si habéis creado algo, cómo ha funcionado y qué consejos nos podrías dar para un proyecto así.
Muy bien. Again, thank you. Very interesting presentation. And she wants to know if you've had any experience doing podcast done by children for children, and if you have any advice in that regard.
By children for children. There's a platform in the UK which is called Tell Me, TALMI, I think. But there's a lot of safeguarding issues. So this is a great platform. It's an app where kids do their own podcast, and they actually can be published onto Spotify, wherever. And it's a really interesting concept, especially within the education system. If you think about kind of, telling your story, and it's the same kind of breakdown as if you were to write a story. So it's very interesting. But what we do in our podcast is we always make sure that we have community voices. So we get children to send us their messages, voice notes, and we put them in our podcast. So we ask for certain things. For certain podcasts, we ask for certain content, and kids email in, or they send beautiful pictures in, which we then put on social media. But obviously there is a big issue around safeguarding. So for us, it's really important to keep all children safe, and so Tell Me is a great platform that kind of allows children to experiment with podcasting themselves, and then we kind of use, as much as possible, we used children's content within our podcast, because communities, as a key of podcasting, really, it's slightly different to audiobooks. But yeah.
Y tenemos tiempo para una. Creo que estaba usted, caballero. No, sí. Bueno, había más, pero perdón. No.
Buenos días, muchísimas gracias y enhorabuena por la ponencia. Desde que entré aquí se me ocurrió la pregunta. La pregunta es, ¿sabe usted de asociaciones de ciegos en el mundo, en Europa, que se dediquen precisamente desde hace tiempo a este tipo de producciones para niños? Y quiero testificar también, alabando la intervención del amigo invidente o ciego, que yo tuve el honor de trabajar muchos años, fueron mis primeros pasos en locución, lo que he sido locutor de televisión española durante 35 años, incluso para los vejestorios, fui locutor de Nodo, me eligió Matías Prat, el padre. Bien, a lo que voy, fui locutor del libro hablado, grabé muchísimos libros de derecho que me encanta para invidentes y, termino, la prueba más fuerte que yo he tenido en mi vida fue grabar Requiem por una mujer, de William Faulkner, donde hay muchas páginas, 10, 12 páginas sin un solo punto, y nos pagaban por grabación limpia, de manera que si yo llevaba grabadas 6 hojas o 6 páginas y me equivocaba, había que volver atrás. La pregunta es, ¿qué conoce usted de entidades dedicadas a ciegos en el mundo, en el área infantil? Y agradecerle la respuesta, si me la puede facilitar. Muchísimas gracias.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation. And he wants to know if you know of associations that cater for blind kids especially, and if you're aware of any of them. But he would be really interested to know about.
Okay, for children's, there is, in the UK, there's Royal National Institute for Blind People, and there's a listening charity. In the US, Richard Riemann, I can't really remember, he's working with Dreamscape in order to put some of his audiobooks, visual audiobooks, so very much visualizing picture books. I can give you the details later. So there's a lot. I don't necessarily know in Spain what organizations, but it's done worldwide. There are services there for blind and partially sighted people. And I want to stress how incredibly important it is that we have, books available for the blind and partially sighted community, as well as for anyone who struggles to read for any particular reason. Audio is reading.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And for all of those that are as young as me, we are finishing. It was super interesting. I think, she's on a mission, so take advantage.